In the 1920s and early 1930s, the main form of widespread communication was done through radio. But on September 7, 1927, inventor Philo Taylor Farnsworth changed history forever when he made the first successful, fully electronic television transmission, starting the age of long-distance video communication. Shortly after, he presented his new invention at the World's Fair in September 1928, to a great wonder and interest in his invention. After many developments and advancements being made to the original television design, news stations would then start broadcasting, with the first being NBC, ABC, CBS, and Dumont TV in 1949. This changed communication in history in many ways, as it opened a door to many new forms of communication that most people use today, including computers, the smartphone, and modern-day television. This is Philo T. Farnsworth. He was born on August 19, 1906 in Beaver, Utah. Farnsworth was well known for his large contributions to the electronic television and is commonly referred to as the inventor of the electronic television. When he was 14, he had the idea of a device that could communicate to you through a visual experience, the television. Farnsworth would later go on to enter Brigham Young University, but only shortly after enrolling, had to leave to support his family and finish high school because of his father's death. But this didn't stop Farnsworth's dream of making the electronic television, as in 1926, he, along with his wife, Pem Farnsworth, moved to Los Angeles, where Farnsworth got backing to start working on the project. Philo Farnsworth finished his invention in 1927, along with the image dissector, a camera tube that allowed for an image to be transmitted to the television. Farnsworth presented the television later that year in San Francisco, and once again at the World's Fair in September 1928. In 1930, Farnsworth would start patenting many of the television parts. Later that year, the Radio Corporation of America, RCA, sent Vladimir Zworykin, head of the RCA's electronic television project, to evaluate Farnsworth's work. Zworykin's receiver, the Kinescope, was superior to that of Farnsworth's, but Farnsworth's camera tube, the image dissector, was superior to Zworykin's design. Zworykin was said to be very interested in Farnsworth's image dissector, so RCA offered Farnsworth $100,000 for his work and patents, which Farnsworth declined. Farnsworth later went on to form an association with the radio manufacturer Philadelphia Storage Battery Company, Philco, in 1931, but ended only 2 years later, in 1933, due to disagreements over where Farnsworth and Philco saw the company going. After the separation from Philco, Farnsworth started his own manufacturing company by the name of Farnsworth Television and Radio, and in 1937 made a licensing deal with the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, AT&T. Farnsworth shortly after purchased Capehart Corporation's factory and began producing and selling radios and phonographs. The RCA wanted to begin producing and selling televisions, and in 1939, after a long series of court cases between Farnsworth and the RCA regarding Farnsworth patents over many of the necessary parts needed for a television, RCA agreed to pay Farnsworth $1 million USD for his patents, which is today equivalent to nearly $18 million USD. When Farnsworth accepted, the RCA was then free to begin selling electronic televisions to the public with a starting price of around $1,000 USD, or today equivalent to around $18,000 USD. Shortly after the start of a large-scale production of the first publicly available electronic televisions, news channels and broadcasting stations began broadcasting, which started a new era of communication used throughout history. And the first regular TV shows started in 1949, being broadcasted by NBC, ABC, CBS, and Dumont TV Network. Of course, this was a big thing to people back then, because before that, the only way of communication was through radio or through phone. both of which had no screen or any visual display. Over the next 50 years, CNN, Fox, and smaller broadcasting companies were also created. Television didn't really become popular until the 1950s, when TV sets became less expensive and they started coming out with a lot more shows like I Love Lucy, Lone Ranger, Stand By for Crime, and Maverick, most of which were sitcoms and dramas. At this time, the main news channels were CBS, NBC, and ABC. This was also known as the Golden Age of television, as numbers of viewers increased by millions and the number of households with televisions skyrocketed from 4 million households in 1950 to 26 million in 1954, over half of the United States population. And in 1962, nearly 90% of households had a television. Everybody was watching the news and television shows, which led to information being communicated faster and faster and at an exponential rate. By the late 1960s, there was a television in nearly every household in America, and TV stations were making a multitude of different TV shows and movies. TV shows and movies were one of the main reasons people liked TV, as it offered a wide variety of entertainment. So it also gave money to companies like the Walt Disney Company, which is why they were able to make so many movies and eventually buy Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and others. This also helped multiply the popularity of TV. As more and more households got televisions, companies like Apple and Microsoft began making devices and gaming consoles. Multiple devices, computers, and devices we use to make this very project. These devices eventually evolved into the massive video gaming industry we have today, and all players communicating to each other all across the world. This also led to search engines like Google and Bing and other popular websites such as Instagram and YouTube. Without these devices, communication would be much slower than it is today, and it would take a lot longer to learn of major events like 9/11, Stormwatch, and other catastrophic events and warnings. TV has truly made this world a better place.